What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense and uncompromising actors sits across from a morning show host who thinks he can play hardball on live television? What unfolds next isn't just uncomfortably, it's explosive. This isn't a routine promo segment. This is one of those rare moments when a carefully scripted TV interview slips completely out of control, and the mask of polite conversation shatters in real time. Tom Hardy is seated opposite George Stephanopoulos on Good Morning America, there to promote his latest film. On the surface, everything looks standard: bright studio lights, practiced smiles, polite introductions. But the tension is unmistakable. Hardy, dressed in his usual understated black jacket, looks calm, but there's something in his eyes that signals he's not here to play along with cheap theatrics. He's alert, guarded. Ready. Stephanopoulos opens with praise for the film, but quickly pivots. Instead of sticking to cinema, he steers the conversation toward controversy: Hardy's comments about method acting and mental health. The implication is clear, and it's loaded. Critics, he says, believe Hardy has been irresponsible. The word lands hard. The camera catches the shift immediately. Hardy's jaw tightens. His gaze sharpens. This wasn't a discussion. It was an ambush. Hardy responds calmly, but there's steel beneath the restraint. He questions the word choice, asks Stephanopoulos to elaborate. Instead of backing off, the host leans in, clearly convinced he's in control. Mental health advocates, he claims, are concerned. Parents should be worried. The temperature in the room spikes. Hardy's accent thickens slightly as his patience wears thin. And when Stephanopoulos reminds him who's asking the questions, the silence that follows is deafening. Then Hardy strikes, not loudly, not emotionally, but precisely. Parents should be concerned, he says, about morning show hosts who do no real research and rely on secondhand gossip to corner their guests. Stephanopoulos' smile flickers. He tries to reframe it as an honest conversation, but Hardy isn't buying it. He calls it what it is: tabloid tactics dressed up as journalism. Hardy dismantles the setup piece by piece. If this were honest, he says, his team would have been informed. If this were responsible, Stephanopoulos would have done his homework instead of reading vague talking points off a teleprompter. Viewers, Hardy argues, deserve better than manufactured outrage. And then he flips the script entirely, challenging the host directly, asking when he last researched method acting or consulted real mental health professionals about controlled emotional exploration. Now, Stephanopoulos is rattled. He accuses Hardy of being defensive. The response is immediate and cutting. Hardy didn't wake up before dawn to be used for a gotcha moment. Standing up for context, for accuracy, for professional standards, that isn't defensiveness. That's integrity. When Stephanopoulos claims the quotes speak for themselves, Hardy calmly asks for specifics. Word for word. Publication. Journalist. Date. The studio falls silent again. Stephanopoulos looks down at his notes, then back up, but he has nothing concrete. No quotes, no sources, just vague references. And that's when Hardy delivers the final blow. You can't accuse someone of being irresponsible, he says, without even knowing what they supposedly said. That's not journalism. That's negligence. The power dynamic has completely reversed down on live television. There's nowhere left to hide. That's character assassination based on hearsay. Hardy doesn't raise his voice, but the accusation cuts deep. The camera immediately finds Stephanopoulos, and for the first time, his polished composure begins to crack. He shifts in his seat, clearly uncomfortable, insisting the information is right there in his notes. Hardy doesn't blink. Then read it, he fires back. Read the exact quote that has you so concerned about my supposed influence on young actors. Stephanopoulos fumbles with his papers. A thin sheen of sweat forms on his forehead as the moment stretches. Finally, he tries to dodge. The specific quote, he claims, isn't as important as the overall pattern. That's when Hardy's voice rises just slightly, but enough to change the room. The specific quote isn't important. He repeats, "You've spent 5 minutes questioning my professional integrity based on something you say," I said. "And now you're telling me the actual words don't matter?" The tension becomes suffocating. From Hardy's perspective, the situation is now painfully clear. He calls it out directly. This wasn't an interview. It was an ambush. He was brought on under false pretenses so accusations could be thrown around without accountability. In the background, crew members exchange uneasy glances. Even the camera operators seem unsure whether to keep rolling or cut away, sensing he's losing control. Stephanopoulos attempts a retreat, clearing his throat and pivoting toward safer territory, the new film. The character, the heavy themes. Hardy shuts it down instantly. "No, George. We're not done here." He reminds him that several minutes were spent attacking his professional methods using research that clearly doesn't exist. And if those claims were brought to the audience, then the audience deserves answers. Hardy presses harder. He asks Stephanopoulos to name just one mental health advocate who has criticized him. One name, one verifiable source. The response is vague. Several articles. Hardy leans forward now, eyes locked. Several articles, but no names, no quotes, no specifics. Then he flips the accusation back on its owner. Stephanopoulos is doing exactly what he accused Hardy of, damaging someone's reputation with vague, unsubstantiated claims. The studio grows dead silent as Hardy spells it out. Millions of viewers have just been told that mental health advocates find him irresponsible, that parents should be worried about his influence, yet not a single piece of evidence has been presented. Stephanopoulos looks flustered, deflecting responsibility to his producers. Hardy repeats the word slowly, almost pitying. "Your producers." Then comes the knockout. Hardy asks how long Stephanopoulos has been in journalism. When the host dismisses the question as irrelevant, Hardy disagrees. "What's happening right now," he says, "isn't journalism at all. It's gossip, lazy, irresponsible reporting that drags down the credibility of people who actually do the work." Stephanopoulos bristles, claiming he doesn't appreciate Hardy's tone. The response is instant and surgical. Hardy doesn't appreciate being ambushed on live television by someone who couldn't be bothered to fact-check their own accusations. He wasn't invited to discuss rumors. He was invited to discuss his work. What happened instead, Hardy says, wasn't hosting. It was entrapment. The audience sits frozen as the exchange spirals. Crew members look panicked, likely waiting for a signal to cut to commercial. Stephanopoulos accuses Hardy of overreacting. Hardy's voice drops, becoming quieter and far more dangerous. He calmly lists the accusations that were just made, harming young actors. Irresponsibility toward mental health, being a bad influence, all without a shred of proof. "How exactly," he asks, "would you like me to react?" When Stephanopoulos calls them legitimate questions, Hardy demands evidence, studies, expert opinions. Anything beyond a producer's interpretation of second-hand chatter. Again, Stephanopoulos stalls, citing various media outlets. Hardy shakes his head. "Those are politicians' words." He says the language people use when they're dodging accountability. Various sources say people are concerned. That's not reporting. That's fabrication. Hardy delivers the final challenge with absolute clarity. If any of this is real, prove it right now, on air. One example. One quote. One verified source. Until then, everything that's been said is nothing more than smoke, mirrors, and a failed attempt at a televised takedown. The silence stretches on, unbearably long in television time. Stephanopoulos shuffles his papers, glances at the cameras. Then back at Hardy like he's searching for an escape that doesn't exist. He finally mutters that they're spending too much time on this. Hardy shuts that down instantly. They're spending exactly the right amount of time on it. Serious accusations were made, he says, and now the moment those accusations require proof, Stephanopoulos wants to move on. That's not how accountability works. Stephanopoulos insists no one is running away. Hardy doesn't miss a beat. Then stop deflecting. One name, one quote. One piece of actual evidence. The host is visibly sweating now, falling back on corporate language research teams. Multiple sources, compiled information. Hardy repeats the phrases slowly, dismantling them in real time. That's not an answer, he says. That's cover. Anonymous critics, vague concerns. Producers in the shadows, anything except personal responsibility. The camera catches Stephanopoulos looking off-screen, almost pleading with his producers for rescue. He claims viewers would rather hear about the film. Hardy fires back without hesitation. Viewers deserve better than ambush interviews built on tabloid rumors. They deserve journalists who bring facts, not insinuations. Hosts who ask real questions, not weasel word accusations dressed up as concern. When Stephanopoulos accuses Hardy of being aggressive, Hardy corrects him with surgical precision. This isn't aggression. It's accuracy. It's what happens when someone is asked to back up claims they confidently made just minutes earlier. Accountability only feels aggressive to people who aren't prepared for it. The audience looks transfixed and deeply uncomfortable, like they're witnessing something that was never meant to happen on a morning show. Stephanopoulos tries again to regain control, asking for a productive conversation. Hardy's response is devastatingly calm. They could have had one TFE had started with honest questions instead of manufactured controversy, designed for a viral clip. This path was chosen deliberately. Now it has to be seen through. One last attempt. Stephanopoulos falls back on celebrity responsibility. Hardy locks eyes with him, and when he speaks, his words cut through the studio. Absolutely, celebrities have responsibility. So do journalists. So do morning show hosts. So do networks that claim to uphold integrity. When Stephanopoulos insists their standards are high, Hardy doesn't hesitate to challenge that claim. Right now, millions are watching unsupported accusations, unresearched questions, and a host dodging responsibility. If that's the standard, Hardy asks, what exactly are they proud of? Stephanopoulos is unraveling now, calling Hardy difficult. The disbelief in Hardy's voice is unmistakable. He was ambushed on live television with false claims, and now he's being labeled difficult for demanding facts. If a professional conversation was expected, Hardy says, then professionalism should have been shown through preparation, research, and integrity, not tabloid-style gotcha tactics. Desperation fills the studio. Stephanopoulos looks around, clearly hoping someone will cut to commercial. He says they need to wrap it up. Hardy doesn't let him off the hook. After spending 10 minutes attacking his reputation, after implying to millions that he's a dangerous influence, now he wants to move on. Limited time didn't stop the accusations. That choice was made deliberately. The studio is dead silent. The hum of cameras, the only sound left. Crew members stand frozen, unsure how to stop a collapse happening in real time. Stephanopoulos asks Hardy one last time to tone it down. Hardy's voice drops. Quieter than ever, infinitely more dangerous. Tone it down. After being publicly accused, misrepresented, and cornered without evidence, he lets the question hang in the air, unanswered, leaving the weight of it crushing the room. And in that moment, it's painfully clear this interview is over, not because the segment ended, but because credibility did. Do you understand how insulting that is? Stephanopoulos protests, his voice strained. He claims he's just trying to have a civil conversation. Hardy lets out a bitter, humorless laugh. There is nothing civil, he says, about ambushing a guest with unsubstantiated accusations. Nothing civil about making claims you can't back up. And nothing civil about attempting to damage someone's reputation for ratings. By now, Stephanopoulos is visibly sweating. The polished morning show persona is gone. His mask has completely slipped. He insists this was never the intention. Hardy demands an explanation one the viewers deserve. Why was he brought on under false pretenses? Why were serious accusations made without basic fact-checking? And since when did journalism become repeating gossip and branding it as news? Stephanopoulos retreats into abstraction, claiming they're asking important questions about celebrity influence. Hardy cuts straight through it. Know your manufacturing controversy where none exists. You're creating drama for ratings, then hiding behind vague phrases like responsibility when challenged. The camera catches Stephanopoulos looking defeated, but Hardy presses further. He asks a question that lands like a hammer. Does Stephanopoulos have children? The host refuses to answer, calling it irrelevant. Hardy disagrees. If those children are watching, what lesson are they learning? That it's acceptable to make accusations without evidence. That ambushing people with lies is journalism. That when you're caught, you just ask them to tone it down and move on. Stephanopoulos looks off camera again, desperation written all over his face. He suggests taking a break. Hardy leans forward. You don't get to take a break from accountability. You don't get to accuse someone's character and then walk away when asked to justify it. Then everything spirals. Stephanopoulos calls for security. Hardy's disbelief is immediate. Security, for asking you to support your own questions with facts. Guards begin moving toward this set as Hardy shakes his head in amazement. This, he says, looking directly into the camera, is what modern journalism has become. When journalists are confronted about shoddy research, they don't correct themselves, they call security. A guard tells Hardy to calm down. Hardy looks at him, then back at Stephanopoulos. He's seated, speaking calmly, asking for basic journalistic standards. What exactly does he need to calm down from? Stephanopoulos has lost control entirely. He orders Hardy removed from the set. Hardy asks, calmly, on what grounds? For asking for evidence? For expecting professionalism? As security closes in, Hardy stands slowly, deliberately. This is remarkable, he says. He came to talk about his work and is being removed for demanding basic integrity. He looks into the camera one final time. This is what happens, he tells viewers, when you ask for accountability in modern media. Remember this moment. And with that, Tom Hardy walks off the set under his own power, leaving Stephanopoulos seated in stunned silence. The studio audience doesn't make a sound. Television history has just been made. The camera lingers on Stephanopoulos' hands, shaking as he shuffles his papers before abruptly cutting to what is clearly an unplanned commercial break. Tom Hardy didn't just defend himself. He exposed the hollow tabloid machinery of modern morning television, live, unscripted, and undeniable. If you want more breakdowns of moments where celebrities refuse to play the game, subscribe. And drop a comment below what part of Hardy's takedown hit the hardest.